As an international cricket journalist for 10 years, I tell you what, I have got a collection of international SIM cards that I will never truly understand. Now I find there is a company called Selly who gives you an eSIM and it makes it all so much easier. So if you're planning on making any trips, download your Selly eSIM app and you can also get a 15% discount if you say good areas, all one word, at checkout. Travel like a pro with your Selly eSIM today.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Overthrows podcast. I'm Behram Kazi, who you can find at Def Mango on Twitter. And with me, once again, joining us from Bangladesh is ESPN Cricket Info's Bangladesh correspondent and podcaster at Crick Talk, if I'm not wrong, Assam Bhai. Welcome to Mohammed Assam. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, all good, all fine. How are you, Behram?
I'm doing all right. You can see the beard is slowly coming back as well, so I'm happy about that. Although
Yeah.
you've grown yours since the last time we met.
Well, we are going to discuss a test series where you'll find out why I didn't have time to shave.
Fair enough. And of course,
Yeah.
if you are a Bangladesh fan, I am giving you guys a trigger warning because this is about to get quite ugly. And that's only due to the cricket that they've played. A 273 run innings and 273 run defeat at the hands of South Africa. They absolutely smashed them in Chattogram. South Africa swept the test series 2-0. And I just want to ask you, Sambhai, what the hell has happened here? Because losing is one thing, but then this was a hammering. Bangladesh didn't even compete all series.
Yeah, and surprising given how they played in Pakistan.
Hmm.
Um, Quite unexpected the way they played in Pakistan. But what happened after Pakistan was also expected that they would get a hammering in India because India,
Hmm.
before this New Zealand series, were obviously the invincible team at home,
Yep.
crushed Bangladesh in Chennai and Kanpur. So that was expected. But again, what was expected was that they would beat South Africa quite well, or they would compete against South Africa. I personally felt that they could beat South Africa at home for the first time. It totally baffled me. It totally baffled everyone who was
Hmm.
watching these two test matches. It was just shocking to see how easily they capitulated.
Yeah, I mean, shocking is correct. Might even be an understatement because, Jared and I were supposed to preview this test series, but the Women's T20 World Cup was ongoing. So we kind of, didn't record that episode and we did a couple on the Women's T20 World Cup. And had we recorded those, my predictions for the series would have either been 1-1 or 2-0 Bangladesh. I was not predicting South Africa to win 2-0, even though, they are a quality side, but Bangladesh at home are generally really, really strong. And they had just, won an unprecedented test series in Pakistan. They'd never beaten Pakistan in a test match, let alone a series. And that came away from home in Rawalpindi. So it really was, astonishing from that point of view that not only did they get absolutely thumped, but they were never really in this series from the very first ball. And the second test was, I mean, if you're losing by an innings and 273 runs, then that is, well, it doesn't make for great reading.
No, it didn't. It was an abject, surrender. They
Hmm.
turned up on the first morning in Mirpur, slightly overcast. They were bowled out for 106 in, I think, the second session. South
Hmm.
Africa were in trouble slightly, 140 for 6 at the end of the first day. But then South Africa, through Kyle Verreynne, they took it to a different level. They were 308 in their first innings. Taijul bowled quite well, but
Hmm.
when you are defending 106, you can bowl as well as you want. You're not going to bowl the opposition out
Yeah.
too cheaply. And South Africa also figured out the wicket. There was a bit of movement in the morning. It wasn't the typical slow, low turner Mirpur at the start of that test match. In fact, throughout that test match, there was true bounce because Mirpur also wasn't used for almost, I
Hmm.
think, almost a year. So for red ball cricket in that way. So it
Yeah.
was quite a fresh wicket. There was pressure on the curator Gamini Silva to produce a better wicket. He did. He did
Hmm.
produce a good wicket that the Bangladesh team wanted. You remember they were talking about the Rawalpindi wicket with such
Hmm.
adoration. They love
Yes.
those wickets, yeah, and they kept telling us that we want these sort of wickets at home. They went to India and said the same thing, that we want these wickets at home.
Hmm.
When they got it, uh, they were caught unawares somehow by Kagiso Rabada and Wayne Mulder. Wayne Mulder
Yeah.
especially bowled very well. Rabada also bowled fantastic. And then um, Bangladesh fought back slightly in the second innings, but again, that
Hmm.
wasn't a great fight back. I mean, really depends on what Mehdi Hassan Miraj is doing, and it's a very unfair thing to uh, expect a number 8 or number 9 to bail them out every day. And
Yeah.
when the interesting thing was Mushtaq Ahmed, the former Pakistan leg
Hmm.
spinner who works for the Bangladesh team these days as the spin bowling consultant, he comes out to a press conference, I think, couple of press conferences where he really stressed on the fact that they really believe that
Hmm.
Bangladesh can come back from 6 for 26. There was no mention of how they got to 6 for 26 in Rawalpindi, or how
True.
they were crashing in Dhaka or Chattogram. So that was a really disappointing part coming from the team management. And
Hmm.
again, Mehdi Hassan Miraj missed 100, but he again bailed the team out. And again, every time the press box expected a wicket to fall, it, invariably within an over or two it would fall, and that
Yeah.
trend continued in Chittagong as well.
No, absolutely. You mentioned Kagiso Rabada. Of course, he once again struck gold in this test. We both spoke about how in the last time or during the last podcast that we did together, that KG Rabada loves bowling in Bangladesh. He made his debut here, and it's a happy hunting ground. Well, he took 5 for 37 in his first dig once again, and he is now back to the top of the ICC Test bowler rankings. Where, according to you, does he rank amongst the best seamers in contemporary world cricket just at the moment? Because he's got good competition in Pat Cummins and Jasprit Bumrah. Where do you see him amongst those top guys?
Look, among the current lot, I think Pat Cummins debuted before Kagiso Rabada. I think
Hmm.
Rabada debuted in 2015 in Test cricket.
Yeah.
He broke the record of Waqar Yunus, 20
Hmm.
or 34-year-old record actually, or 24
Yes.
or 34, actually 24-year-old record, sorry,
Hmm.
of the fastest bowler to reach 300 wickets, the lowest strike rate. That tells you the story. And what
Yes.
also tells you is the South African legacy.
Hmm.
So in that same list, you have Dale Steyn and Alan Donald.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to see where the lineage comes from. And Rabada is amazing in helpful wickets, and
Yep.
without any help also he's tremendous. And he's such a good candid speaker. He came to the press
Hmm.
conference, I think, on the first day, and he said we had no idea this was going to happen. Before he bowled a ball, apparently he was worried about what South
Hmm.
Africa could do on this wicket. He didn't know how to bowl out Bangladesh, but the moment they saw a bit of movement, they saw a bit of sea movement and movement in the air, like a bit of swing, I think. When they figured that out, Mulder figured it out quickly. Rabada, obviously, the world
Hmm.
class operator that he is, it didn't take him long, and he burst through Bangladesh. He started off with the big wicket of Mushfiqur Rahim. We know how
Yeah.
Mushfiqur Rahim can make bowling attacks struggle, and he burst through his gate. The two stumps went flying. It happened in the second innings as well. Yeah, that was it. I mean, when Mushfiq goes, and later we found out that Mushfiq was apparently playing with a shoulder injury. Remember,
Hmm.
he suffered one in Rawalpindi, I
Yes,
think,
I
in the
do remember
second
that.
innings in Rawalpindi. Yeah, so
Hmm.
he's been carrying that, and he's still
Wow.
playing with a strapping, and he's not
Hmm.
allowed to play cut short or something. There's a restriction on his movement as well.
And that was
Interesting.
4 test matches
Yeah.
ago, right? Like, what is happening over here? You should be, treating your players with care and making sure that they're fully fit. But anyway, we were talking about KG Rabada, of course, and you mentioned how he's the quickest to 300 test wickets in terms of bowls bowled. Waqar Yunus's record was broken. He also has the lowest strike rate amongst any test bowler in history with a minimum of 120 wickets. I think I've got this fact right. So he obviously stamped his authority once again in Chattogram, but he wasn't South Africa's highest wicket taker in this test, Isam Bhai. That was Keshav Maharaj, who took 7 in total, including 559 in Bangladesh's second innings. Now, Keshav is someone who, when he started off, we probably didn't think he could achieve much. And currently, he is South Africa's most prolific spinner in their test history. And he is enjoying a peak currently, being a regular wicket taker for his team. Very recently, if you remember, in West Indies, he was rampant as well. His stock just continues to rise. And, in a series in Bangladesh versus Bangladesh, you don't expect Maharaj to outspin the opposition.
No, you do, because
You
Keshav
do?
Maharaj is one bowler.
Hmm.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, because he's the sort of bowler who always reads the wicket very well. He knows which pace to bowl at. So
Hmm.
apparently, before the first Test match, he spoke to Tamim Iqbal and found
Hmm.
out what pace to bowl at in this ground, because they played in the BPL together last year. He
Yeah.
knows Tamim, so Tamim gave him a few tips apparently, and well, a bit of local information doesn't help. I think everyone does that.
Hmm.
Tries to find out what's going on. They ask the curator, sometimes the umpires. So it's good to have someone who really
Hmm.
knows Bangladesh's condition. And then Keshav bowled, and he had that support also from Kagiso at the other end. The
Yeah.
interesting thing was, it looked like Keshav Maharaj read the Chittagong wicket faster than the Bangladesh bowlers, or the Dhaka wicket, at least earlier than or better than the Bangladesh bowlers. You had
Hmm.
Taijul Islam and Mehdi Hasan Miraj, who are always dominating Test matches in Mirpur. But it was Keshav Maharaj who bowled the right pace, and he could rip the ball past the bat because there
Hmm.
was a bit of purchase on the wicket too. So my point here is that with experience, he's bowled all over the world. He bowls long spells, and
Yep.
in the South African team, you don't really have a lot of not too much of a competition. I mean, he's the guy they bank on, and they really rely on him. So I
Hmm.
have this. When I saw him, it's like a very settled role, and that understanding of wickets. I think you and Jared did a pod on his
Yes.
his start in all
Hmm.
sorts of cricket. So
He was
that
an
tells you
overweight
that,
guy. He was an
right.
extremely overweight guy.
Right. So when you have gone through so many phases in your career, you tend to read these pitches faster. And later on
Hmm.
in your career,
Hmm.
pitches become, like kind of like open books. I mean, you really
Yeah.
know what you're bowling on.
Yeah, I mean, he is a wily customer and extremely intelligent. And Sam Bhai was mentioning the footmarks that Jared and I did on Keshav Maharaj. So if you guys want to know more about him, it's a very, very interesting journey. Go look for that footmarks in our playlist. Anyway, we've spoken a bit about South Africa's bowling. I want to talk about the batting, and there's so much to unpack over here. Let's start off with the player of the match, Tony De scored his maiden test ton, racked up 177 runs in the first innings. Isamba, he's got the hair, he's got the Cole Palmer celebration as well, and he's a left-handed bat. So what's not to like?
And he look in Chattogram as a left-handed bat with nice hair is. I mean,
Yes.
fans in Chattogram remember Kyle Myers from
Yup.
2021, of course. He played that unbelievable fourth innings knock for West Indies, 210 not out.
Hmm.
Tony Zizorsi is a very different cricketer, of course, very different batter. Very upright, plays down the ground quite well. But because of the wicket that was in Chattogram, slow, low, and it was a flat wicket. It didn't have a lot of demons, but you had to get set on that
Yeah.
wicket. He did that very well. He lost Aiden Markram quite early, but
Hmm.
despite his lack of experience at this level, he read the wicket properly. He understood what Bangladesh were trying to do to him, and he tried to sweep. And
Hmm.
it was very worthwhile for him, the sweep shot. At the other end, he had Tristan Stubbs. I'm sure you
Yep.
would have mentioned him.
Hmm.
Another debutant, another maiden centurion. They had
Yeah.
three in this test match. I think
Exactly.
the
So
first time in like 70, 75 years in
it's
test
crazy
history.
because you look at the South African batting lineup and you're like, okay, I don't even know how they'll fare at home, let alone away from home, right? And over here, Tony De maiden test 100, 177. Similar story for Tristan Stubbs, who scored 106. And then Wian Mulder, of all people, he scores an unbeaten 105. South Africa declare at 577, oh, sorry, 575 for six. And to your point, like three maiden test centurions in the same innings, not even the same test in the same innings, right? I feel like Bangladesh have been a bit too generous here.
No, no. Let's talk about Tristan Stubbs first. I mean, that was a
Hmm.
superb knock from a batter. We are used to seeing him in white ball cricket, right? Like the
Hmm.
big hitter, the IPL guy. He has before this innings, I think he had six centuries in first class cricket, two half
Hmm.
centuries. So his conversion rate was superb. One
Yeah.
of his centuries was a triple hundred. Tony Zizorzi comes with a bit of a pedigree in first class cricket as well. So
Hmm.
all these players, even Wian Mulder, even Senuran Muthuswamy, they all have first class hundreds. So they have that sort of like a backbone of
Yeah.
runs to score in longer version. It's not that they're too new. Bangladesh bowled poorly in
Hmm.
the second part of that, in the second half of the South Africa innings in Chattogram. But I think whatever the bowlers are dishing out to you, you'll have to score runs. And Wian Mulder obviously struck the ball very well down the ground.
Hmm.
I think he's hit a number of sixes, and even South Africa, I think, broke some sort of a record for a number of sixes hit in
Hmm.
that innings, or a
Wow.
long-standing record. It was their first 500 plus score in a long time, actually. So,
Yeah.
coming to Asia, we were watching New Zealand do whatever they were doing in India, but South Africa doing it in Bangladesh. Why it was, I wouldn't say it was bigger than what New Zealand did, but it was
Yeah.
significant because South Africa
Hmm.
didn't win in subcontinent for 10 years.
Absolutely.
This team they don't have a Dean Elgar. They only had a very experienced fast bowler in Rabada. They had a very experienced spinner in Keshav Maharaj. That's fine, but you need a very good batters in the subcontinent because of the sort of treacherous wicket. Say, what if Mirpur was a worse wicket than it was
Hmm.
played out? So that could have been one thing. But they
Yeah.
looked very confident. They batted upright, and it wasn't as if only the three guys scored centuries. There was runs from the other batters as well. So Rickleton got a bit of got a few runs. Bedingham, I was really
Yes.
looking forward to have watching David Bedingham.
Honestly,
He's
prior to the
Yeah,
series, Assam Bhai, I thought Bedingham would be the main man for South Africa
me
with the
too.
bat, and he
Yes, yes,
scored a
yes.
brisk 59. It was very attractive and all of that. But
Yeah,
other batters outbatted him, and guys like Aiden Markram, who really should take a look in the mirror because that Test record is looking very very slim. And also
yeah,
Verena got a duck in this match, right? So apart from
yeah.
maybe Markram, and that might be it. Everyone else got runs. And that is a success story for South Africa because, like you said, they haven't won a test series in Asia for 10 years. So this is still significant. People might not look at it that way, but it is an accomplishment.
Yeah, and say Markham didn't score runs, but he led the team well. I think
Hmm?
in the Chittagong test, what really was interesting was how they got out. The back end all got out trying to slog, and a slog sweep or a sweep, an attacking shot. They were very good straight down the wicket. They were throughout the
Hmm.
innings very good, solid through covers, mid on, mid off. That's what you have to do in Bangladesh. That to get set, and unfortunately, Bangladesh didn't do it. They were even poorer in Chittagong, but it was very you appreciate good cricket. So what South Africa did, it was fun watching them bat. I
Yeah.
was really looking forward to David Bedingham, but doesn't
Hmm.
matter. Tony DeZorsi, left-hander.
Hmm.
We're gonna see a lot of him. We're gonna see
Yeah.
a lot of Tristan Stubbs. Stubbs told us that he comes from a very good first-class background, which he does, and then he shifted to white ball cricket, and now he
Hmm.
wants to establish himself. So this is a very hungry side as well. I think South
Yeah.
Africa, despite the lack of experience, they're gonna start doing well in Asia too.
They've unearthed some stars at the perfect time. We all knew what Tristan Stubbs was capable of, but he scored 106 of 198 deliveries. So he was patient. That's what that tells you. Tony DeZorzi is someone who I've heard a lot of people rave about, right? And there are expectations from him. So 177 with the bat is huge. Verena's 100 in the previous test was fantastic. Vian Mulder scored a 50 in the previous one and then doubled down with an unbeaten 105, right? All of these guys really rose to the occasion. David Bellingham, like, he only scored 159, right? Like, the only 59 that mattered, I suppose, in the end. Because it was brisk, it was still attractive. But there was another scorer, right? Senuran Mutusami, the slow left arm orthodox all rounder. He was unbeaten on 68. And he also took 5 wickets in the Chattogram test, including 4 for 45 in Bangladesh's second innings. Now, he should not be outplaying Mehdi Hassan Miraz, in my opinion. Like, that's the one that really gets to me because I've seen Mehdi in the flesh very recently, really impressed by what he's been able to do, and he's still been able to get runs here and there. But with the ball, he hasn't been as incisive. And I mean, if nothing else, you should be out bowling Mutasami.
Yeah, Bangladesh's execution was absolutely shoddy.
Hmm.
They just in one of the pressers, I think one of the coaches said that perhaps they forgot about the execution in Pakistan. What how they the whole we hate that word process, right? But
Yeah.
it is true that Bangladesh completely forgot what they did in Pakistan. They just remembered the glory part of it, the
Yeah.
fact that they won, the fact that they did so well. Honestly, I felt very disappointed in the way Mehdi
Hmm.
played. The way Mehdi bowled. He batted
Yeah.
well, and he usually bats well, even in the Chattogram Test matches. In the
Hmm.
Chattogram Test, he bailed the team out from 8 for 48 or something. So
Yes.
you expect him to get at least pitch up the ball properly. He was quite short. He couldn't string together maiden overs, which he's known for. Taijul had to do the heavy lifting with the ball. So
Yes.
um, it was so confusing to see them play so poorly. I have a few things that I've found out why it happened or how it happened, but
Hmm.
those are gonna sound as excuses. But there are some off the field issues happening in this test series as well.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to get to that. Just let's talk about the other performances before that. The bottom line, of course, remains that an inexperienced South African team came and won a test series in foreign conditions, and most of their players were up for the challenge. But we've spoken a lot about them. I think it's time we focus or shift our focus towards Bangladesh. And there's not much to write home about over here, Isam Bhai. Taijul, of course, took 5 out of 6 South African wickets that fell in this test. And Mominul once again scored 82, I think it was Bangladesh's first innings. And he also scored that ton versus India. So he's somewhat in form. Apart from that, there's nothing. There's nothing to talk about.
There's nothing to talk about. The only thing to talk about is how poorly they got out in Chittagong. It was just
Hmm.
one really odd dismissal after the other. You had batters having the ball, scissoring between the bat and pad.
Hmm.
You had one Zakir Hassan. Remember Zakir Hassan scoring that
Yes.
quick fire, half century or something
Hmm.
40 odd in Rawalpindi, right? He just was, playing away from his body. The one, I think in the second innings he was out with the ball going between his bat and pad and then getting stumped. You don't see these dismissals. Mushfiq caught at mid wicket, thus soft dismissals. Mominul in fact batted twice in a session in this
Yes.
Chittagong test match. It was so pathetic, man. It was just they just crumbled over. And you know I'll tell you something. In the press box, we were predicting a wicket. Whenever we predict a wicket,
Hmm.
one would fall. South Africa probably didn't realize. I think Temba Bavuma, who was injured, he gave an interview to a local newspaper here saying that we expected more of Bangladesh. I think even
Aha.
South Africa were taken by shock by how poorly they
Hmm.
batted in Chattogram. And so, what I'm trying to say is, everyone figured out how Bangladesh were going to get out. It was a sort of mentality that everyone could figure out, and it was very poor. So
Yeah.
something was wrong with this team, and the news around the team actually tells you what might be wrong.
Hmm. All right. I'm going to slightly delay that conversation because there is something I want to discuss first. You mentioned how Bangladesh really liked the surfaces in Pakistan and India. And these surfaces that we've seen in Mirpur and Chattogram. Well, I mean, I didn't expect them, right? So, what was going on over here?
No, I mean, they really always talk about surfaces at home not suiting batters, and it's
Hmm.
usually about Dhaka. Chattogram is usually the Zahur Ahmed Chaudhary Stadium pitch is usually something that they've always enjoyed batting on, but it
Hmm.
ends up being, they have only won 2 out of 25 test matches there, so it's not a
And they've
result wicket for
scored
them.
they've scored 302 runs across 2 innings.
Exactly. It's more of a mental issue. I don't
Hmm.
think South Africa were threatening that much. They set great fields. I mean,
Yeah.
at one point, I think Markram kept three mid-offs or something with the three slips. It looked amazing. But they were playing on Bangladesh's mind because they figured out that this team was nowhere.
Yeah.
Their presence wasn't there. I know that there has to be a cricketing explanation for all of this, and there must be. But if you had, when you have seen them bat live, it just looked like they were quivering. They could not
Hmm.
understand what they were supposed to do, or
Hmm.
did not want to understand what they were supposed to do. Maybe, you can say they were too confident. Maybe you can say they were not confident. So
Hmm.
I would say they were not at all confident by the time they batted in twice in Chittagong. Everyone expected them to
Hmm.
lose 16 wickets on that third day. Exactly how it happened.
Yeah, it sounds like everything was really predictable from an analyst's perspective when you were kind of observing the Bangladesh batters bat. But, you know, a lot has gone on in Bangladesh, not just the cricket board, but in the country, which has had a direct impact on the cricket board as well. And Shakib is gone. We don't know if he'll ever play for Bangladesh again. Test cricket, definitely no. He'll probably feature in limited overs. But what would you say is the biggest issue plaguing Bangladesh cricket at the moment? Is it losing Shakib? Because all of a sudden, Mehdi, who used to be batting at 8, now has to bat 7, and you are a bowler short as well. So Shakib was big. And then, of course, there's been volatility in the BCB as well with the new chairperson coming in, and of course, all of the Awami League people, getting ousted. Or was it, the nature of the surfaces, or just the continuously failing batting lineup? Because ever since that Pakistan series, they always end up scoring like 150 plus score across 2 innings. That's been the trend. I've been noticing it.
Yeah, on the field, it has been quite shambolic since India.
Hmm.
Um, when you talk about this South Africa series, 6 days before the first Test match, the BCB first suspended Chandika Singh, who had
Hmm.
a great
That too.
relationship with Nazmul Hussain Shanto, the captain, and it rocked the Bangladesh team. And then, furthermore, Of course, Shakib's farewell was planned by the team. They were planning
Yes.
to do a lot of things for him. That didn't happen. We go to the Mirpur Stadium. It's like it's the headquarters of the Bangladesh Cricket
Hmm.
Board as well. So you could see picketers outside, or kids outside, students outside. There was a group who protested against Shakib
Yes.
playing. Then came the Shakib supporters. They had a clash 2 or 3 days before the Test match. By then, it was clear that Shakib wasn't coming. It
Hmm.
was so sad to see how it panned out, because of how the government couldn't really guarantee Shakib's security, which I understand.
Yeah.
South Africa was there; they didn't want another incident. As they had already lost the Women's World Cup, but the
Hmm.
BCB were also, they just washed their hands of the thing. They didn't do anything about it. They had not,
Hmm.
no role. And then you finally realize that it's a very weak cricket board right now,
Yeah.
and this that
Have you had a chat with Phil Simmons yet? Because he's the guy who's replaced Hathra Singh. And you, of course, mentioned
yeah.
that, Hathu had a great relationship with Shanto. So where's Phil's head at? How does he assess this whole situation?
Look, Phil Simmons is held at a very high regard in Bangladesh. I think he interviewed here twice. The players really like him. The
Hmm.
players know him as a players coach because of his role in
Aha.
West Indies. He comes with a huge pedigree. I think 390 odd matches under his belt as a coach. So they really respect him. But that
Hmm.
is one side. But having Phil Simmons 2 days before a test match is not going to. Phil Simmons needs time, right?
Yes.
He's seen the worst of Bangladesh team. I haven't had a talk with him in that way yet. We've done a few press conferences where he's saying the right things, but
Hmm.
he's here for 6 months. I don't think he's going to continue after 6 months. It
Hmm.
looks unlikely. I think he has a job in the PSL as well, one in the
Yeah.
MLC. Yeah,
Hmm.
so it's unlikely that he'll continue. They're looking for another coach. So that's the thing. I mean, you sack Hathura Singh, and you've been wanting to sack him. The board president has wanted to sack him,
Yep.
and it looks like a revenge plot. And then you
Hmm.
sack him. Then after the first test match, there's news out that Shanto doesn't want to lead the team.
Hmm.
Finally, we got hold of him after the Chittagong test. He didn't really reveal a lot, but it has a lot to do with what he's enjoying. His batting has gone,
Yes.
really, he's done quite poorly in the last 7 or 8 months as a captain. I heard from one of the senior members in the management that someone has already told him that you should focus on your own batting. Captaincy will take care of itself. But he apparently takes a lot of interest in everyone's. He's trying to be a good man manager, which is absolutely
Hmm.
fine for a young captain. He's only 26, and he's seen captains like Mashrafi and Tamim, be good man managers. But that has affected his cricket apparently, and I believe that. Whether he stays or not for the West Indies tour, he's already been named for the ODIs against Afghanistan come
Hmm.
starting later this week. But they've just spoiled his batting form,
Yeah.
which he brought over from 2023. That was a great
Hmm.
run of form that he had.
He should have never gotten that haircut. The power was in the hair, Isam bhai. That's where it was. Tony
Hair, beard,
Dezorzi is proof of that. My power is also
beard.
in the beard. It's slowly coming back. Anyway, yeah, I mean, look, Shanto's captaincy in Pakistan was spot on. They didn't try anything fancy. They stuck to their plans, and it paid dividends. I'm sad to hear that he's thinking of quitting. And would you think that just all of that background noise would have hampered the team's performance as well? Because all of a sudden, like there's so much uncertainty. At least at a time where there's some uncertainty or a lot of uncertainty in the country, you could have had some stability within the cricket team.
Look, in Pakistan, when they went to Pakistan, it was 14 days after the new government was formed.
Hmm.
Everyone was very excited. There was bad news coming from Dhaka, Shakib, with that murder case against him.
Hmm.
Hathura Singh being under pressure, but they,
Yes.
shut it out because they were in Pakistan. They were away from it. Here, when they came to Bangladesh, it was playing against South Africa. They could see the fights happening right outside the gate of the
Hmm.
stadium.
Yep.
Then they had one of their own, Hathura Singh removed. Then
Hmm.
Shanto said, "I don't want to be the captain." Just imagine that dressing room,
Yeah.
without a lot of senior players as well. This team was very reliant on senior players, and now even Mushfiq is slowly moving on because he's been playing for a long time.
Hmm.
Next year he'll complete his 20th year in international cricket. So I'm sure he
Yeah.
helps out, but you cannot have some senior players always tending to what the team needs. It's They have to stand up for themselves. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it against South Africa, not at all.
Yeah, no, that's quite evident from the scoreline as well. But yeah, hopefully, there is an upturn. Maybe Phil Simmons can fix some certain things. But from my personal experience, and I haven't been covering cricket as nearly as long as you have, but dressing room, what would you call it? What's the word over here? Dressing room, not infighting, but just regular instability. And when there are several different opinions in there, it doesn't help. And maybe that's one of the main contributing reasons behind Bangladesh's drubbing. Do you have any other BCB goss for me? What else is going on?
No. I was just thinking that what
Hmm.
really changed for Pakistan, right? I
Hmm.
mean, you guys have covered the whole thing, but it's amazing to see how Alim Dar, this Akib Javed viral video. I love that how he makes his hand do this, do that. You're gonna win test matches. And
Yeah.
Alim Dar, apparently, I've been reading what Daniel writes or Osman Bhai writes and what you guys are talking about. Of course, it's very interesting to see how whim, sort of like a whim, right? Like they really didn't plan this, like bring these guys in.
Yeah, it was quite drastic in that sense. And of course, that's the only way Pakistan cricket knows how to function.
Of
They'll
course.
say consistency, 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 and do something like that. But look, they didn't really have anywhere else to go. They tried the seamer friendly surfaces versus Bangladesh. They had tried and failed with flat decks for so long. It took them, what, 2.5 years to figure that out, that flat decks are not the way forward. It was only obvious for them to try and play England on a spinning surface because we know that baseball does get exposed versus spin. We've seen it in India. So that worked out. The problem is that now Akib Javed is the new messiah of Pakistan cricket, and he is looked upon as the solution to everything, which is the wrong way to approach things. You add structure, you follow processes, and that's how you improve and become a consistent side. This is just more of the same that we've seen from Pakistan over so many years. So hopefully we won't be looking at this series win versus England as accidental in the future. And maybe there's something that the team can build on over here. But of course, this podcast is about South Africa, Bangladesh. Bangladesh, of course, have no chance now of qualifying for the World Test Championship final. South Africa, on the other hand, have put themselves in pole position. They've got 2 home test series coming up versus Sri Lanka and Pakistan, 4 test matches. If rain stays away, they are favorites to win all 4 of those test matches. And they don't even have to win all 4. I think they need to win like 3. So they would be looking at this remainder of the draw quite favorably. And I reckon they might even be favorites to make the final now.
They might be, but Behram, if they're playing Sri Lanka and Pakistan, I wouldn't, assume that they're going to win 4 or 3. Sri Lanka, just remember, they just beat New Zealand quite, convincingly.
Yep.
They beat West Indies recently. They're looking like a very good team these days. Honestly, they're looking
Hmm.
like a very good team. Pakistan, you never know. They have a few fast bowlers coming back.
Hmm.
What if, Alimdar comes up with a new plan? Never know. Why I mentioned this is, Bangladesh can do with a bit of a fun left field move. There are
Hmm.
people here who can maybe come up and give a solution, because this team, honestly, it's a good team. They need a bit of assurance from someone telling them that, yeah, we're with you. You can, there's not going to be many, because the board has recently offloaded 11 board directors. The BCB
Hmm.
had 25, so I think
Wow.
the count now is something close to 16 are already
That's
gone.
crazy. I mean,
That's
at
crazy.
least
Yeah.
Assam, bhai, at least your coach and captain get to decide the playing 11. At least there's that.
Nowadays, when it was Nazrul Hassan Papon, he would obviously give his cricketing
Yeah,
analysis into the
of
whole thing.
course.
So, and
Also,
it's
for
very
all.
interesting. So,
Hmm.
very interesting that Farooq Ahmed, the former captain, he doesn't really get into that now. He just
Yeah.
lets the selectors and the captain decide, and the coach decide.
Yeah, just to let everyone know, all of our viewers and listeners, Isam Bhai was on the Pro Sports podcast as well. We spoke about Bangladesh cricket at length, so you can go check that out for more context. You mentioned Sri Lanka. Look, they've got those 2 test matches in South Africa, a venue where they won in 2019. And then they also have a home test series versus Australia. They've got a good shot, right? New Zealand, if they win 3-0 versus England at home, they go through. India are not out of it just yet. They could win the Border Gavaskar Trophy, and
4
there
nil,
might
yeah.
be. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very likely. We've got Pro Sports in the comments as well. Saad is saying, love you, Sam bhai. And Behram
Ah,
is all right as well. Thanks for that, Saad. I think you're all
thank you,
right
Sad.
too.
Yeah.
and apologies to all the other people in the comment section. Really couldn't put anything up on today, but send super chat, send us money, and we'll take your questions. Yeah. So predictions for the World Test Championship finalists. Then I'm leaning towards
Ah,
Australia, South Africa, but the way Test cricket has gone in 2024, like it's been on meth. It's literally been drugged out. West Indies beat Australia at the Gabba. Sri Lanka beat England at the Oval. Bangladesh swept Pakistan in Pakistan. New
course.
Zealand have swept India in India. Pakistan came back versus England 2-1 to win the series. It's just unexplainable. Like, it's unfathomable. You cannot predict this shit or write this script.
Sri Lanka versus New Zealand final.
Ooh, I like that. I like that. So the T20 World Cup, Women's T20 World Cup had no big three team in the final and
Exactly.
no big three team in the World Test Championship final is something that I could definitely live by because deep down in our hearts, we all want this sport to be more equal. Might be a pipe dream, but that's what we want. Anyway,
Your prediction, Behram?
My predictions, I'm going with a safe prediction, South Africa, Australia, because I feel like Australia have just enough to win the BGT, right? I feel like it will be a 3-2 result, and I'm leaning towards Australia, but I could be proven wrong. Bumrah goes on a run, Pant scores a few hundreds. You never know. India could win that Test series. Winning it 4-1 though, or 4-0, that does seem like a stretch to me. I feel like South Africa have the easiest draw. But to your point, they don't have a very... despite the result in Chattogram, the batting order is inexperienced, and they could be outbowled. It is likely. It's not impossible. So New Zealand winning 3 versus England at home seems a bit of a stretch to me. They could win the series though. It's going to be exciting. We're set up perfectly for the end of this World Test Championship cycle, which has happened for the first time in a way. Last time Sri Lanka was in with a shot, and before that it was fairly straightforward. India and New Zealand making it. But even though teams don't play equal number of games, I feel like this has added a lot of context to Test cricket. I definitely enjoy it.
I love it. I think this makes a great case for Test cricket having that context for another few cycles. I mean, Bangladesh have come into the picture now. Sri Lanka, obviously, New Zealand is always there. South Africa is coming in. So you have the way you spoke right now. You've like 5 or 6 teams could make it. So that's the whole idea of a competition, right? And this should go on. This should be at least the whoever decides it should make it slightly more equitable for the other teams. I think that's the only thing that needs to happen.
Because those percentage points change based on how much you play. And in a way, that kind of favors the teams that play less. But when you're playing less, you can't compete at the top level. So it's like a catch-22 situation. I mean, if Kudrat Nizam's harder than it's ever Nizam before, Pakistan also have a route, but that's not happening. They need like 10 different things to
one
go
more
their way.
thing. Kudrat ka Nizam comes from Saklen Mushtaq, right?
Yes, it does.
Mushtaq Ahmed has one in Bangladesh right now. Believe.
Okay.
In
All
one
right,
press
Mushi bhai.
conference, I think he said believe 18 times. I counted something like that.
You
So he's
should
very
go
big
check
on
out-
belief.
You should go check out the Red Inker that Jarrod and I did with Shoaib Malik, and he said the word clarity like 18, 20 times as well. And
Clarity is
clarity
not a
is what
bad
we
word.
yearn for. We still
Right.
yearn for it in Pakistan cricket, right? But anyway, that kind of wraps up our itinerary. Thank you so much for taking out the time, Assam bhai, and hopefully we will meet soon enough.
Inshallah. Of course.
Yeah. And thank you to everyone who was interacting with us in the comments section. And just a quick reminder to everybody, you can go to goodareas.co and bookmark that webpage. It can prove to be a one-stop shop for all the work that we do as part of this team, whether that be written content, videos, or podcasts. And that pretty much wraps this up. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll be back soon enough with more videos. That's all for now, though. Have a good one, and goodbye.
As a cricket journalist, I would travel sometimes up to 200 days a year. I loved watching cricket games. I loved going to new countries. It was an absolute dream. But there was one thing I hated more than anything else about it, and it was this little pin. The thing that I need to change my SIM card in every new country. The absolute worst thing about this pin and SIM cards is when I was traveling to the West Indies, of having to arrive in every new island or country and having to work out if I could still find this pin and then line up and get my SIM card in every single airport. Well, now we have the answer thanks to Sally. They can make it so you never have to worry about this nonsense ever again. They use an eSIM app that once you install once, it is easy, simple, and cheap. Oh, and it works in more than 160 countries. And you can throw these pins away forever, because now you just need to download the Sally app before your trip. And if you do it with our code, GOODAREAS, you get an exclusive 15% discount on Sally eSIM data plans. So before your next holiday or work trip or any time you have to travel to another country, download the Sally app and use the code GOODAREAS, or one word, at checkout, and you can travel like a pro with Sally.